The last time I checked, Champions League quarter-finals are supposed to be difficult, but not if you're Barcelona, because they just absolutely battered Borussia Dortmund 4-0, and they done it by playing what I would call total football, but at the same time balanced football. They dominated the possession, they dominated the chances, and were by far the better team. They absolutely ripped Dortmund to shreds. The question is, how? So as you would expect from a Barcelona side, the ball started with the goalkeeper, they played out from the back and they played through Borussia Dortmund to eventually create chances. But we do need to start off in deeper positions, because in these areas I think Barcelona were good, but I also think at times Borussia Dortmund were incredibly poor. I think their press was so disconnected. You can see it in this moment here. The Dortmund players just don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. When you do that against technical players like Barcelona are going to be able to play out from the back, and we very quickly saw that, a Barcelona side that easily moved the ball through the first phase. I think what was interesting after that though was the midfield three. These three are pure technicians. We're going to come back to some of their numbers in just a moment, but the way that they ran this game was absolutely phenomenal. The technical quality on display was a joke, and at times Borussia Dortmund couldn't actually get near them. They couldn't really lay a glove on them. And Barcelona essentially attacked with menace in all three parts of the pitch. Through the centre, down the left-hand side, and also down the right. And it starts off in the middle. Barcelona, a lot of the time, actually had more players in this area than Borussia Dortmund, because Chukwuemeka would move further forward into a front two, and you can see that Dortmund are in a sort of defensive 4-4-2 shape. The problem for them was that Barcelona had three central midfielders, and again, the technical quality on display from these three was a joke. Just look at the passing numbers. It's unfair. Borussia Dortmund couldn't take the ball off them because, like I said, the technical quality was just immense, but it was also helped by the fact that tactically they had more players. The poor Borussia Dortmund double pivot didn't really have a chance in this game. Even when Chukwuemeka dropped in as well, they just didn't get particularly close. But particularly when it was the 4-4-2, what would happen is Barcelona would build the ball down one side of the pitch like this. Of course, Borussia Dortmund are going to try and get over to that side of the pitch to try and crowd them out. But the problem is, because Barcelona have three midfielders to the Borussia Dortmund 2, there is, of course, this outnumbered situation here, which means Barcelona can eventually work the ball across and find the free midfielder. And if they can't, that would be because Dortmund have moved the winger across, and now there is room on the far side. So this is why Barcelona took total control in the middle of the pitch, and then it was about damaging Dortmund in the wide areas. So on the right hand side of the pitch, we saw Koundé actually playing at times a slightly reserved fullback role. He wasn't exactly bombing forward into the attack. I wouldn't quite say he was always in the back three either, but you can see him here often dropping a little bit deeper. On average, I would say he was in this sort of in-between position, and I think the reason he was doing this was essentially to give Yamal more space. Sometimes if your fullback comes flying high, you almost just get in the way of your winger, particularly when Yamal wants to come inside onto his left foot. Because Koundé stayed deeper, it gave Yamal this room to take his first touches back towards his own goal to drag the Dortmund defender out, and then he's almost creating room for himself to spin into, whereas had Koundé been situated a little bit higher, Yamal wouldn't have had that space to operate in. But because of how it worked, the youngster was able to get on the ball in these positions, had lots of touches in this game, and to be honest, it was a bit of a mismatch in this wide zone in terms of spinning inside and going that way. He could also go down the line in the 1v1 as well. He was just too good. He was just too good, and that's what we've really seen in the Champions League knockout games. Certain front threes just being kind of unfair, just being too good for the opposition, and it was the case again in this game. Yamal given that license to pick up the ball in these areas, to come inside and attack, or to go outside, and we will come back to this just a little bit later on. First of all though, let's quickly switch over to the left hand side and look at things over there, because it was slightly different, and the immediate difference was that Balde was not holding a deeper position. He was flying forward, time and time again, given that license to fly forward down the left hand side. A proper bombing, overlapping left back, which kind of just completely destroyed the Borussia Dortmund structure. And I think really it was the rotations that we saw in these areas that was key, because as Balde would move forward down the left hand side, Rafinha would come inside. But what's important, and this is going to lead on to our next point, is that Rafinha doesn't come inside and just play in the pocket here. He comes inside and he makes runs off the ball, which creates space for other people. I think when people have been talking about this Barcelona side this season, people have spoken about the ability for players to find space, and that's very important. There are a lot of players in here who are great at finding space, But what isn't spoken about enough is the way that other people create that space. So Lewandowski was amazing at finding space in this game, in this position here, but he was only able to find that space because Rafinha was creating that space. Because as Rafinha comes inside, he doesn't stop here, he bombs past. And that takes the Borussia Dortmund defenders with him. Then Lewandowski can drop a little bit deeper to the edge of the box. And then again, Barcelona can combine in these positions. It was just amazing to watch the way that these players were rotating, moving into different positions. And the big thing for me was just the constant runners. There was not a moment in this game where every Barcelona player was coming towards the ball. If Lewandowski came towards the ball, Rafinha ran past. If Rafinha came towards the ball, Balde would run the other way. And it makes life so difficult for Dortmund at the back. Because, you know, let's say all the Barcelona players make the same movement. Let's say they all move towards the ball. There are some teams in Europe that are guilty of doing this. All the players move towards the ball at the same time. This means it's really easy for the opposition defence to squeeze high because they know where the players are. Or you could see a team full of runners that all run in behind, but again, that's easy for Dortmund because you know where they're going. In this game, Barcelona had an incredible blend because one player would come towards the ball to drag someone, and then someone else is going to go into the space behind. So as the centre-back, are you meant to follow the player into this position, or are you meant to drop deeper? This is when spaces are created. And there is also just one more thing that I want to talk about with the way that Barcelona attacked in this game, and it was the constant use of 3 versus 3 situations, literally everywhere. Now, I wouldn't actually describe this so much as a tactical point on the game, but actually more of an emphasis on the technical ability of this Barcelona side. Now, what I want you to do is look at this clip here. It's going to last around 30 seconds. But just look at the number of times Barcelona create a new 3 versus 3. So it starts here, 3 Barcelona players down the left-hand side, 3 versus 3 against Borussia Dortmund. The reason you create these scenarios is because that's what you do every day in training, in rondo drills, where you are combining in small spaces against defenders. Barcelona have kind of historically been the masters of this, and they continue to do it in the modern era. The team right now is constantly creating these moments. This is just 7 seconds later. A new 3 versus 3 in this position here. The ball is going to get moved again 2 seconds later. Now a new 3 versus 3. Again, we move the ball across 3 seconds later. A new 3 versus 3. Barcelona create these positions constantly. Constant new situations where there's 3 Barcelona players close to each other up against 3 Borussia Dortmund players. And quite simply, in these 3v3s, Barcelona were too good because, again, you've got players moving towards the ball and then someone spinning in behind. The combination play, the interactions between these players are special to watch. And what it eventually does is it just tires the opposition defence out, and you have these moments where you can find that switch of play to the far side. The way that Barcelona did this was just amazing. And like I said, for me, this isn't so much of a focus on tactical stuff, although of course this will be influenced by the manager. But it's the technical ability of the players. If you can get, let's say, Rafinha, Balde, Pedri in a 3 versus 3 against these 3 Borussia Dortmund players, you just back them to come out on top because Rafinha's going to make a run in behind initially, then he's going to come back towards the ball, but Balde's going to play the ball up for Rafinha, Rafinha's going to pop the ball inside to Pedri, and then Rafinha might make the run again. It's passing and moving football. It is done with an incredible sharpness. The crispness with the way that they play is just mind-blowing at times. I haven't seen that much of Barcelona this season. Not many games at all. I was so impressed in this match with the way that Barcelona just destroyed Borussia Dortmund. And then the final thing we have to talk about is the balance of the front 3. Yamal, Lewandowski, Rafinha. Creator, runner, goal scorer. That's the dream. That is the dream. Barcelona are just so well balanced right the way across the pitch. And I tell you, they're one of the favourites for the Champions League this season because I think they're amazing. Defensively, I have a few concerns. Even in this game, there were moments where Borussia Dortmund were able to get at them. You can see that in the expected goals, but you can also see in the expected goals that Barcelona blew them away. Barcelona were way too good. Going forward, mesmerising. If you haven't seen Barcelona this season, I would highly recommend watching them because they're a lot of fun. They're really good, and tactically they've got a great balance. The players within that structure are allowed to express themselves, to combine, and the quality is just ridiculous. I loved watching it. It was a thoroughly enjoyable experience watching that Barcelona side just tear Borussia Dortmund to shreds, and you would imagine now that will be Barcelona through to the next round. But I want to hear in the comments down below, do you think Barcelona can or will go all the way in the Champions League this season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.